Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think we should go ahead and get started. Before we get on with the lecture, I do want to recognize a couple of special guests. So Dean Debbie Compow has joined us. Debbie's in the back, along with my department chair and Associate Dean David Widby. We also have a number of people from my Risk Management and Insurance Advisory Board who've joined us this evening. A number of them will be speaking at our event tomorrow evening. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike McNamara. I'm the Mutual of Enumclaw Field Professor here at Washington State, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 32nd Annual Walton Lecture. This lecture has brought to our campus prominent leaders in the field of risk management and insurance, and today's lecture will continue with that fine tradition. This lecture is made possible through an endowment from the Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers of Washington. The endowment honors their past president, Mr. Max Walton. Mr. Walton was an independent insurance agent in Richland, Washington. This is actually the first of two events that we have this week for our students. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we'll have our Insurance Industry Night program in Todd 125. Representatives from PEMCO, Travelers, State Farm, Country Financial, Mass Mutual, and others will discuss careers in risk management and insurance. They'll offer some career advice for students. After the program, we're having a networking reception down at the Carson Center. This is over dinner hour. We'll have sandwiches and chips and soft drinks. Come down, network with the industry professionals, and you can get amplifier credits, not only for this event, but 2 amplifier credits for the events that are being held tomorrow. And now to today's lecture. The property and casualty insurance industry is in a state of flux at this time. There are large dollar losses mounting for hurricanes and earthquakes and wildfires. In concert with these property losses, there are also problems on the liability side of the industry. There's been adverse loss development resulting from a phenomenon that, if you've been following news at all, is called social inflation. And Carrie will be talking a little bit about social inflation in her remarks tonight. Then factor in evolving risks. We're all familiar with cyber risks and supply chain risks, and reviewing Carrie's PowerPoints for this evening, she'll be talking about some other interesting risks that are evolving in the industry at this time. My question is, who's going to be addressing these present and future risks? Perhaps some people in this room. This is an industry where there are a lot of opportunities available, and Carrie will be discussing those as well. Berkley North Pacific is a commercial insurer that operates in this very difficult environment. The company is a subsidiary of W.R. Berkley, a Fortune 500 company that's traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Berkley North Pacific is fortunate to have an experienced leader, Carrie Cheshier, as their president. We're very fortunate to have her with us tonight as our speaker. Ms. Cheshier earned her undergraduate degree from Weber State University. She's earned a number of insurance industry certifications and designations. She's worked with several national insurers, including Travelers, before being named president of Berkley North Pacific. Ms. Cheshier's lecture is titled Property and Casualty Insurance, A World of Change and Opportunities. After her remarks, we should have time for some questions and answers. At the conclusion of this event, we'll have a special presentation for our speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a very warm Washington State welcome to our Walton Lecture 2024, Ms. Carrie Cheshier.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Carrie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay in the back? Awesome. Thank you, Dr. McNamara. It's such an honor to be here, and I'm just thrilled to be spending some time with all of you students and some of the people on the advisory board. And I just couldn't be more excited to be on campus although I am not a graduate, my husband was, and he's a proud Coug, go Coug, and do everything I can to get back here as often as I can. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful campus and a beautiful place. I also know that you guys are taking time away outside of a school day. And so I'm going to try to make this, as entertaining as insurance can be. But we're going to be talking about, a lot of different things today. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about me, but I really want to make it more my insurance career journey so you guys can see what is possible in the insurance industry. And then I want to talk a little bit about, my organization, Berkley North Pacific, as well as the property and casualty. There's an and missing between the two. I'll catch it right away. I was seeing who's awake. Property and casualty insurance, and spend some time talking about that, as well as emerging risks. That's where we're going to spend the majority of today talking about, those emerging risks and how fast and different the insurance industry is changing. Because as the professor said, you guys are going to be some of the people that are going to, you're going to find solutions and we're going to solve problems. So I hope that if nothing else, that you leave today curious about what is going on in our insurance industry. And then I want to spend a good amount of time talking about career opportunities, because I can tell you, I think that the insurance industry is just a fascinating career. And there's so many different aspects that I could literally talk all day about it, but then it would not be a good night for any of you. So I promise you we'll keep it a little bit condensed there. But I do want to make sure that we have time at the end for Q&A as well. So really super busy slide that I don't expect you guys to read. And some of these slides are going to be super busy. But I kind of want to walk you through my career journey with the lens of those opportunities and, maybe the road not taken or a different road taken. And then a couple little special things that are important to me, like my children. But, I want you to be thinking as I'm going through this, it's not about my career. It's about what careers can happen in the insurance industry. So I did graduate from Weber State University, and I was fortunate enough to be able to play golf for a couple years there, and I did play at Palouse today, and I absolutely loved that course. But it was one of those situations like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I basically walked out of Weber State University with a general business degree and stumbled into the insurance industry. And I was very fortunate because, moving from Utah is where I grew up. So I moved from Utah to Seattle, Washington. Started a job in the career. First one I could find was a claims job. And somebody helped me find that job. And it was such a fun opportunity for me, because when you're in claims, what you get to do is you get to learn about people. You get to learn about challenges that people have. I mean, people get in car accidents and we're there to help them. And so it was just so rewarding to be able to be into a new city, learn about different neighborhoods. And so that was my first, venture into the insurance industry. I felt like I wanted to be on the other side of the business where you actually ring the cash register. And so you'll see I made a change in like 1990 and went into underwriting. And I was able to handle, some, liability type of underwriting files. At the time, the company that I was working for, Aetna, did Boeing work comp. So I got to learn about workers' comp. So I'm trying to tell you all the different areas. So you've got, liability claims, work comp claims. And so I got to learn a different part of the industry. And I was fortunate enough to get into leadership when I wasn't quite ready to be in leadership, to be honest with you. And so I was able to get into leadership, learn a little bit about leadership, and then kind of go back into a different role, handling more complex files. So the point of it is you can take a lot of different changes and a lot of different career moves in the industry. Education's important to me, which you'll see the CIC, CPCU, ARM, a lot of different designations that won't mean things to you guys, but it was always about learning more and seeing how far I could go. Had a wonderful child, Carlise, and a son, Colton, on the way. and then decided to leave the industry of the carrier side and went to the independent agency side, where I got to spend 4 years in Billings, Montana, and learned a lot about what independent agents are all about and how they do business working directly with insureds. And so a totally different aspect of the business. I missed the carrier side, and I came back from 4 years and moved to Spokane, Washington, where I opened up a business center there. And so now I got to learn about operations part of the business. And I'm going to bring this back home at the end to kind of talk about the positions, but from an operations perspective, you really get to learn deep of all the angles of what happens in policymaking, how you service clients, picking up the phone when an insured calls and doing certificates of insurance. So all the different aspects of how you service the business. From there, I went into personal insurance, and you'll see, total different area. And then took a position as a regional vice president in Seattle. The regional president role is you get to be involved in all the different aspects of the industry, which was an opportunity that helped me be able to run Berkley North Pacific today, and I'll talk a little bit about that organization. It was a small region for travelers, and so my opportunity was not as great, so I was given an offer to go either to Hartford, Connecticut, or Canada. So I chose Canada because it gave me an opportunity to learn about another country and how business is done there from an insurance perspective. They have brokers instead of agents. And, just learning about a different part of the business that I hadn't had the opportunity to learn in. And then as an expat, you have to come back into the country. And so that's how I got to, in 2017, I came back to the Southeast region, where I got to play a heck of a lot of golf. No, it wasn't about the golf. It was about the job. But being able to learn different aspects as well, up until I came to Berkley North Pacific in December of 2020. So started that in 2021. Not about my roles, but about what the industry can offer you if you want to learn and you want to keep growing in the industry. And so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is these emerging risks and why we need to continue to learn and expand, whether it's doing it through a career opportunities or whether it's actually, thinking about the industry differently. So sorry about that long, but I kind of wanted to walk you through kind of some of the learning experiences there. So Berkley North Pacific, we are a commercial regional carrier. So we only do commercial business for property and casualty. And we are, my office sits in Idaho. And you can see there, I'm not going to read all these slides because you guys are more than capable. But those are the states that we do primarily where we do business. And what that means is we do business with independent agents. So we're writing property and casualty insurance through independent agencies that are located in those 5 states. Now, we both know that, when you have commercial risks, they're going to write outside of those territories. So obviously we have business all throughout the country, but all of our independent agents set there. The type of businesses that we like to write think of your middle market risks. So it would be your middle market construction, commercial contractors, so kind of that construction business, the people that go in and do HVAC, on a building like this, for instance. And then we also have middle market, business to business. So that would be my favorite place, Starbucks. We write, the Starbucks store, the corporation, or the building that it sets in and things like that, as well as, farm. So I've learned a lot about combines, which you guys have quite a few here. I love looking at the Palouse for that. So we'll do some farm business as well. So everything that you can think of from a commercial perspective and then small commercial. So that's what we're all about. We have roughly now 70 dedicated insurance professionals because we're growing our business. And they're located throughout that footprint there. So that kind of gives you an idea of what Berkley North Pacific is about. We are a subsidiary and owned by Berkley Corporation. So we are one of the six we're one of the six companies in the regional segment. And again, I'm not going to read all through this, but W.R. Berkley is a large corporation, Fortune 500, that sits in Greenwich, Connecticut. And it's a little bit different model than some of the carriers that you'll potentially talk to through like career days and things like that. We've got, you've got the holding company that sits in Greenwich, Connecticut. And then they have over 60 companies. It says 55 up there. It's like up to 65 now. That these companies are either startups or companies like myself that's a small regional company where we run our businesses. So we're not going back to corporate for direction. We're taking what we know because we understand what this region looks like, and we're making decisions based on what's right for the region. So why that's important is you think about, some of the things that you're hearing about that we're going to be talking about on emerging risks and the weather and things like that you'll hear me talk about later. As a regional company, we can price our business and price our risks more appropriately for the 5 states that we set in. And so that's a little bit of a different model. And then the fact that, corporate funds us, and that's where we get our capital. So that's kind of an important point here, and you can read all the other stats up there. I'm big into like giving you a lot of information on the slides, but I'm not going to read them all for you guys. And then if you have questions at the end, we can talk further about that, because I do want to get into the emerging risks. So, property and casualty insurance. Really, really high level before we kind of start digging in a little bit more. So property insurance, you all have insurance courses or have some knowledge, right? You're going to see hands up and raising your hands. So think of property. So I'm going to go a little basic because we are going to get more, concrete and have some different examples. So property insurance thinks of the stuff, that includes the buildings, the vehicles, think of the property that you guys have. So for us, for instance, commercial, we're going to insure buildings. We're going to insure fleets of cars. We're going to insure combines. So it's those things that we can touch that we insure, including like business income. When your building's damaged and you can no longer be in business, that would be the business income aspect. So you've got your property portion of insurance. Casualty becomes, the more, the duties that you have and the responsibility that you have from a general liability perspective. So for instance, when I go into a Starbucks, I have the duty to kind of pay attention where I'm walking, but if there is a risk there and there's some exposure there that's hidden that I don't see and I slip and fall, it's up to a Starbucks or a coffee shop to make sure that their place is safe. So that's general liability. Excess, think of the umbrella policies is also, that's a general liability policy where people have a duty owed, the duty breach, and then the damages. That's more the general liability aspect. In addition to that, you have some more difficult liability exposures like employee, EPLI. We're really good at doing our own acronyms, employee practice liability insurance, cyber insurance, and some of those different, more complex insurance. That's from a commercial perspective, we get a lot more involved in those type of risks that are a little bit more complex than your basic slips and falls and things like that. But one of the things that has really changed in our industry, years back, this is kind of, this is what insurance is all about. But insurance has gotten so much more complex because of the emerging risks and how much the insurance has evolved. So I kid you not, I had to stop doing this because I could have made this way more messy than it is. So a couple months ago, I was fortunate enough to have a summer intern working with me. And so I kind of had her, start looking at some things and tell me what you're finding interesting. We started looking at headlines And you cannot look at an insurance magazine, or you can't look online magazines. You're all like, who is this lady? You can't look online and see some articles about insurance without seeing the headlines about emerging risks. And some of them, we don't even know that are there, but they will be a risk that's going to be out there that we need to find solutions about. And this was literally just looking. You'll see the first one was like in August and September, but every week we see things that we need to be thinking about in our industry, because if we're not thinking about it, these insured, so think of the business insured that is employing multiple amounts of people, and so there's people depending on the livelihood of that insured. There's people that need them to be viable. If we as an industry and independent agents especially, if we're not thinking about some of these emerging risks and having conversations about how to insure and how to make sure that your livelihood is being protected, then that is a really dangerous situation. And so these are just, things that you guys, if you start like just seeing things out there that cyber risk, we hear about that one all the time. You hear, I read an article, did I put this one up? Sure. The future is uninsurable. The good news, it really is insurable. But if we're not aware of where some of the risks are and some of the emerging opportunities that we need to be in front of, then we've got some challenges. So what are some of the most popular ones? Well, let me back up a little bit. Let me walk you how we look at emerging risks. So this is kind of a framework that my chief underwriting officer and his team spend some time looking at. So from emerging risk, we need to make sure that the minute we see an interest, do we have time to prepare? How we find an interest is what I was just talking about, looking at articles, reading, finding, going through the courts and looking at, potential court cases where maybe this is something that's going to emerge in the future. So that's kind of the framework of saying, we've got an interest out there. How do we prepare? How do we track it? How do we examine our current book to see if we have some exposures in there that we might not be quite aware of? And so we spend some time doing that. Data and analytics. There is not an insurance carrier out there that doesn't have a team of data scientists looking at the trends and looking at information to try to find out if there's some emerging interest that we need to be paying attention to in order to make sure that, one, our policy language either excludes it if it's not intended to be covered, or if it is intended to be covered, is it something that we're getting the right premium through our actuary assessing what the future exposure could be? So that's kind of that emerging interest and time to prepare. Emerging damage, that's when we have to act. That's where we need to make sure that our policies are doing, what we intend them to do. We underwrite. We have to look at our book and say, from an aggregation, do we have more exposure here than we realized we did? Because could you imagine if you had, asbestos exposure in an entire book of business and you weren't thinking about it? Not only, would that cause issues to your book if you were not, excluding something that you didn't intend to cover. It could be detrimental to the policyholder and our shareholders that we also have a responsibility to do the right thing for them as well. And then impacts to reinsurance. As well as knowing our own policies, we need to understand how the reinsurance policies work, because there might be exclusions that if we're not aware of, that we could put ourselves at risk on something that we don't need to. So that's where the complexity starts coming in. And then the time to defend, that's usually when it's too late. And so then you need to make sure that, we've got the right attorneys, we've got the right jurisdictions, and that you're really looking at how you're going to handle that risk, as well as, claims defense, reserving, and making sure, the professor was talking about, some of the adverse, we call it adverse in our industry, because what's happened is our actuaries put up risk they put up reserves, and if they don't get it right, then they have to go back to those years, and now we have to increase reserves to strengthen our reserves. And it's not a good day when those happen and you're off base on what you're reserving. And that's where the time to really understand your book needs to happen. It's much more difficult with emerging risk, because remember, some of these we're not even sure of. We're not sure what the exposure is going to be. And here's a few examples that we're going to talk about. So PFAS are some of the things that are right here. You guys will see the examples. We call them forever chemicals. And they're forever chemicals because we don't believe that they go away. So whether or not they cause environmental damage, but we don't know for sure what even some of the health concerns are. And they can be in almost anything. You think of, the flame retardant, some of the clothes that we wear. We're not positive what some of these, some of the challenges that might be, some of the risk and some of the exposures that might be there in the future. So we really have to think about those. And quite frankly, you have to start underwriting in a different way, because now you have to understand what might contain PFAS. So for instance, if we insure a manufacturer and we're not aware that they're supplying uniforms to firefighters that are wearing fire retardant, and we don't get the right price for it, that's an exposure that we need to be aware of, because we might be woefully under-reserved, or we might have an unintended risk that we just picked up. And so that's kind of the PFAS. Phthalates. I smile every time I say it right. Phthalates, they are your everywhere chemicals. And they're called everywhere because they literally are everywhere. They're in cosmetics, personal care. They make plastics more pliable as I'm drinking water. So they're probably in this. So let me have some. Sorry, I do have a sense of humor. But they literally are everywhere. And so think about it. I was telling you we're a commercial insurance carrier, and we want to write manufacturers. And we try to underwrite these manufacturers, and we know that we've probably got some exposures out there that we're not intending to pick up. So we make sure that we've got the right exclusions, because not everything's insurable, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more too. And so it makes it more difficult for us to almost, look at that crystal ball and say, what could happen out there. And that's where some of these really could come into play. And we've got a whole team that's learning all that they can about this information. This one, a couple other areas that are growing, and there actually are some turning into some lawsuits out there, some of the ultra-processed foods. And this one's kind of interesting when you think about it. We all have a choice when we decide to eat something. So if literally we can choose to have something that's processed, which when I'm on the road, for sure, that's what I'm doing. Or we can, make our own food. But the reality of it is, this is where it gets so interesting. We have this choice, but how unintended it becomes when we see the lawsuits is they now come up and say, well, wait a minute, you write this business that that processes these foods, and guess what? They didn't put on the label that this food could be bad for you, that this food could cause, some long-term effects or something like that. And it sounds like, well, that doesn't happen, but there are lawsuits and there are attorneys out there that are looking for ways to get things covered under insurance policies that weren't intended to be. So that's one that we're actually really watching closely as well. And then you've got the microplastics, plastic, the things, again, that are in the bottled water, and can cause some issues. So I'm making you guys feel really good about food, and hopefully you'll all start thinking how you can make healthier choices, which is not my intent. But my intent is to really make sure that you're thinking about some of these exposures that are out in front of you every day, and because we certainly are making sure that we're thinking about them and especially having conversations with our insureds so they understand some exposures that they might have that are not covered, by the way, because a lot of them have exclusions outside of the policy because it's just not anything we can price for. A big one that I'll tell you on this that's real life. Who likes dark chocolate? Like, I love black chocolate. The black, the darker the better, cocoa. Well, guess what? There literally is a suit in California where they're looking at saying, because dark chocolate's grown in the ground, guess what's in the ground? Lead. And so there was a small trace in lead, and it's actually, a chocolate maker in Seattle, small case of lead. And so therefore it could cause some issues long-term, very minuscule in the future. That's a perfect example of things that the courts can find. And unfortunately, that is a real live example that's going on today. A totally unintended, small trace of lead in dark chocolate. And yes, I'm still going to eat dark chocolate, but it's just kind of stuff to be aware of in the industry that we're thinking about as well. Nuclear verdicts. So if any of you in your spare time call in and listen to any earnings calls from insurance carriers, you're always going to hear a little bit about, nuclear verdicts because they're real. So when you think about when somebody has an injury, we absolutely, if somebody is at fault, that person needs to be put back to whole as close as possible. If they lost a vehicle and if they had some injuries, we need to take care of them. You need to take care of the pain and suffering. But accidents do happen. And what's happened with nuclear verdicts is that punitive damages have gotten carried away. There's some examples right there. $287 million for a woman killed in a motorcycle accident. That's really tragic, and I do not want to belittle how serious it is to lose somebody. And I can tell you, if I lost my children, there's no amount of money that's going to ever bring them back. And that's not what insurance was ever supposed to be for. It's supposed to be to bring you back as close as whole. But what's happened on nuclear verdicts, you get a jury that they just want to punish somebody. And so the punitive damages become, like, out of that $287 million, the majority of, if not most of it, is punitive damage meant to damage or to punish the people. And so it's a lot. There was one recently in Missouri that was $467 million or something like that, where a person was, unfortunately driving impaired and two people and they hit a parked they came up to a trailer that was pulling, think of a semi-trailer that was pulling, I don't know what they were pulling. They went underneath it, and Penske got caught in because Penske makes part of that trailer hitch, and they're saying that you shouldn't have been able to go underneath the carriage. It was over 476 or 67 million, and 460 million of it was punitive damages to punish them. And so it's that, and quite frankly, those are called thermonuclear because they're just outrageously big. But that's something we have to price for that's very difficult. Climate change, you've all seen what's going on with Helene and, the latest one, Milton. It's tragic, but climate change doesn't just impact hurricanes, it also impacts us here because we've got, places, wildfire, there are places that are burning that didn't used to. We've got, we've got hailstorms and we've got a lot of weather here as well. And that's a big change that we're seeing as well. So these are all things that we need to price for and be thinking about, because in reality, there's places that we need to get a little bit more risk and premium for them because it's just changed so drastically. But we could talk about that all day. So I want to go into important stuff. So what I wanted to do is spend a lot of time talking about kind of what the importance of the curiosity and about learning about insurance and how much it's changed, because you guys are all here because you value learning. Yes, you're getting credit for this specifically, but you value learning. You wouldn't be spending time and money and your time here at a university if it wasn't important to you. And the one thing that I hope that you take away from this is the insurance industry provides you the ability to always continue to learn. There's every day, and I've been doing this for decades. I'm over 30 plus years in this industry. Every day I learn something. And every day I really believe that the work that I do is meaningful. I'm making a difference. My company's making a difference when that building burns down and we're able to go there and help that person rebuild their building and get the people back into work. And it matters. Everything that we do from an insurance perspective matters. I mean, it sounds so hokey, but it matters because we're helping people get their lives back together. We're helping businesses get back up and running. We're helping people go back to work. So it's meaningful and you continue to learn every day. Now, career growth, I kind of went through mine. It's endless. It depends on what you want to do. If you're incredibly curious, there's so many different type of areas that you can go into the insurance industry because you just have so much opportunity to grow and change and just learn a lot. Yes, the salary and benefits are great, but the most important part is just how much you'll learn and the company culture. I have found that, I'm fortunate. I'm looking at the front row. I've got people here that I've known for a long time that I consider my friends. And they're people that, I get emotional because it's such an important business. But they're people that you actually enjoy spending time with. And I have a lot more better, good days than I have bad days. And it's because of the industry and the good that we're doing and the people that it draws, in my opinion. Yes, job security. Nothing's recession-proof, but it's kind of close to it because the reality of it is everybody has to have insurance. And so we, you have a little bit of stability there. And then, always learning. I've put that a million times. And then mentorship and support. So what I wanted to also do is I kind of did, the summer intern went and did a survey on all the degrees at BNP. So Berkley North Pacific, what kind of degrees actually are within our organization. And you will see, yes, we have business majors. Yes, we have marketing. We also have people that went to be in HR and psychology. They joined us. We've got finance, insurance risk management. So those people actually sought out an insurance career. I would be in the business one. Communication, education, environmental science, and chemistry. Because insurance is as different as the world is. So, for instance, we hired a new claim person in Greenwich, Connecticut. He wanted to be an actor when he started out. And so I was talking to him. It's like, wow, actor to claim role in the organization. But what he did is he didn't quite make it in LA. And so he actually was an underwriter, underwriting like the entertainment type of business. So he was able to use his passion and love to make a difference in that industry. And he was able to talk their own language. And then he was so intrigued with the business, he started getting involved in the claim aspect, went back and got his law degree and was a general counsel for a firm, and now he's with us. So it's just such a broad area that it's just unbelievable. The competencies that I will say that I think are important, at least for my company, is curiosity. You've got to be intellectually curious. Every day you want to come to work and you want to learn something. Collaborative. We want people that want to be collaborative, work in teams. Yes, you have to have autonomy once in a while, but to work with others and learn from others. Integrity, that goes without saying, but I think anymore we do have to say this because I think it's something that is not a given anymore, but that's really important in our industry. And then innovation. So if you're not curious and if you're not looking for solutions on how to solve some of these issues that we talked about, then you probably wouldn't find reward in the career. But those are some of the traits that I think are super important to have. So this is just a plethora, and this is not even all the insurance careers. I could have completely finished this page and like 5 different other ones. But I really want you to think about it, because a lot of people, when we don't do a good job in our industry talking about the opportunities. So if I seem a little excited about being able to share that with you, it's because I am. But you think about every type of business there is. We need those degrees. We need, all the degrees that are in this room. And we also have an industry that's, aging out a little bit. I'd like to say I'm as young as I was, 40 years ago, but I'm not. And so you see people leaving the industry and not enough people coming in it. But these are all the types of insurance rules, and this is not all inclusive. But anything that touches, this sounds really crazy, but it's true. Anything that touches business or personal insurance or anything like that touches the world, there are insurance type of roles that are needed. You always hear about the sales roles. You hear about the underwriting roles and the claims roles, actuary, but we have data scientists. We've got people doing computer programming, and there's so many aspects of the insurance industry. I just wanted to make sure that you guys are really understanding and thinking about it that way. And I want to leave a lot of time for the Q&A as well, but I think we're doing pretty well from a time perspective. Meaningful work. So I kind of, before we go to Q&A, I wanted to spend a little bit of time, really talking about some of the things that you get to do when you're in the insurance industry. These are all pictures and things our team has done all over the course of the last year. And when I say that, it's an industry that needs to do more on promoting himself, this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Because when you think about the people we insure, somebody needs to, we don't insure the Idaho Youth Ranch, but somebody out there does. And so one of the things that we make sure that we're doing is a lot of volunteering and making sure that our employees are part of the communities that they belong in and that they belong to. And so we spend a lot of time learning about our communities, doing volunteering with the communities. And we also have fun. We'll spend some time on, we do here's one with a heart and stroke walk, but we'll do some other walks out there, cancer awareness times, and spend time with just any organization that we know is valuable to employees within our organization. So I just think it's really important that you guys understand a little bit more about the culture of the insurance industry, at least as it relates to Berkley North Pacific. And, I was fortunate enough to work with Travelers and work with many of the other independent agents that are here. And that's one of the things I can tell you about the insurance industry and our culture is it is a one that likes to give back. So it's very important. I want to spend time, I talk fast, and so I got through a lot of information in a short period of time. But we do have, I'd love to open it up for Q&A. If there's anything else, guys, I could talk about this forever, but I want to open it up for some questions. Yes?
Hi, my name is Bobby Darcy, and when we were looking at your career roadmap, obviously you've had a lot of different careers, and you've moved around a lot. And so my question was, what advice do you have for young professionals on the importance of taking on new roles and making those big decisions that could potentially include like big moves, because you placed a big importance on continuous learning. So just curious on what your advice would be on that.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the question. One of the things, it doesn't always have to be moves too, because I know a lot of people want to just put in deep roots. And trust me, I was born and raised in Utah. I lived in the same house up until I went away to college. I never thought I would be that person that would move that much. But one of the things that I did, and then I'm going to answer your question directly, one of the things that I did, I never took a role unless I felt I would bring value to it. Because it's really easy to just go to that next role just because you want the title or you want, and sure, that's what we do. But to me, it was always about being as good as I could in that role and bringing value, and then taking a role because, one, I felt that I would bring value to the role as well as, learn something from it too. And so I think a lot of it becomes on what's important to you and defining that. My family and my children are quite frankly, everything to me. And that's why I'm back here. But every time that my husband and I, sat down and decided whether we as a family unit would make this decision, we did it together. And then we also tried to look at, and this is going to sound strange, but look a couple roles out. Like, for instance, probably the only, if you're going to take a role someplace, like Canada was a perfect example. I knew that was only going to be for 4 years because you can't stay there longer than 5, and so I had to start an exit plan. So when you're making a decision, one of the things that I found was helpful is to say, okay, obviously the pros and the cons, and will it help you get to where you want to go in the next step and the next step and the next step? Because otherwise, you might not think it through. Does that make sense? Thank you. Yes, John.
Yes. So one question that I had about the insurance industry is you were talking about forever chemicals, for example, and having to adjust maybe rates based on if you figure out a company is using these chemicals. And so one question that I had is if you have seen in the insurance industry make a quantifiable impact on the safety of other industries when a company, for example, decides that it's cheaper to change their materials that they use instead of just paying higher rates?
I haven't, great question. And everybody heard that, right? If not, raise your hands. But, so one of the challenges becomes, so I'll be honest with you, from an insurance perspective, like when you think of the PFAS and the phthalates, I always have to think how that said phthalate. When you think about those, what we're trying to do, and this is going to sound, just being really honest, we're looking at it to make sure that our policy's are we excluding those things? Because I'll be honest with you, we, Berkley North Pacific, cannot cover those because there's just not enough money. And so you need to make sure that you're writing really good policies to exclude them. But the emphasis becomes if we all have the conversations and then the independent agents in the room, if they're actually with their insureds helping them understand that these are potentially uninsurable losses, then that's where I think you'll get other scientists that are much more bright than I am finding solutions for it. But I haven't seen it yet. I'd be curious. Anybody in here in the room, have you found where it's made it, Carla, have you found where it's actually made a difference and we've actually created something that was more safe?
In the auto industry, specifically, IIHS and the auto testing influences how cars are made today, and we influence it through seatbelts they do crash testing and they test the cars, and cars today are much safer than they used to be.
Yeah, and you know what? I did have the opportunity, in Rock Hill, South Carolina, they have a wind tunnel. If you have never seen it, where they actually test hail and structure. So yes, you know what? That's a perfect example of one where they're working to make homes more safe in hurricane territories. And there was actually, when I was in the Southeast and a hurricane came through, I actually was able to tour a house that withstood it because of the way that the building codes and the way that it was built. So that's a great, see, we do good. Yeah, but not the PFAS. We haven't found a solution yet. But that's where you guys are all going to find those solutions. Yeah, thank you. Great question.
But things do change. For instance, you talked about asbestos earlier.
Yep.
So there have been products through time that asbestos was a kind of a miracle product back in the States. It was very, fire couldn't penetrate it, that kind of thing. But when the diseases started happening from it,
they had to change.
The industry had to change and find alternative solutions to that product. So over time
it happens.
Claims will happen. So.
And there's so many people, like honestly, you guys, the phthalates and the PFAS, I literally, because it's such a downer and some of this stuff, I really went back and forth with it. But I really do believe, you guys are going to solve some issues that that aren't even up there today, because that's the beauty of curiosity and innovation and the fun part of our industry, because we find these tough solutions and or tough issues, and then other people like you all find the solution. So great point. Thanks,
there's a
Matt.
mixture of insurance solutions and just financial transactions. So those of you that are studying a lot of finance, true risk management, insurance isn't always the answer.
No,
The company
risk
will
transfer.
do things differently, or find other risk transfer mechanisms to protect themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, because insurance is just one of the very small facets. You had a question?
Yes. So, hi, Carrie. For
Hi.
somebody who's like really hungry, like they know I want to go into commercial insurance, be it like as an underwriter, an independent agent, or in claim, something like that. And like for the first 5 years of your career, for example, you want to like maximize how much you're learning about the industry. Is there any like specific path you would recommend, or like designations to pursue outside of just like a CPCU, or like any other advice you would give for somebody who just wants to become an expert as quickly as possible and just like learn and learn and learn?
Yes, learn and learn and learn. Read everything you can. CPCU is great. And then, oh my gosh, and guess what? We're having a summer intern. I wrote that down, Professor. So summer internships are great. Like we did one last year. We're doing another one this year. So the summer interns. And you know what? Reach out to people in the industry. I am a sucker for talking to anybody that wants to learn about this industry. I am not kidding. So through LinkedIn and other channels, learn as much as you can from others. And one of the things that this is not going to be a popular statement. One of the things that I think is a sad outcome from COVID, to be honest with you, is a lot of people aren't back in the office. We're 4-1, so we're 4 days in and 1 out with lots and lots and lots of flexibility. But what that allows you to do is learn from others. There's no way I would be here today if I didn't go into an office when I was starting out in my insurance career and listening to everybody around me and asking tons and tons of questions. And so honestly, I did the CPCU, CIC, ARM, Associated Risk Management, and all these to learn as much as I could because I actually found it so interesting. But then talking to people about it instead of just the book learning, because unless you actually go and see risk and talk to clients and talk to independent agents that are in the business, you won't learn as much. Yeah, it's just hard work, but fun.
And as you research companies, really pay attention. Most of us have done a pretty good job beefing up our websites and give you an idea of what the curriculum and opportunities are going to look like. But yeah, you need to understand what that company's commitment is to trainees.
Yep.
And how they're going to handle that process. So again, talk to folks, and we're all happy to reach out.
Yeah, honestly, that's the beauty of LinkedIn. I accidentally was going to go to coffee with an individual because they wanted to. I didn't realize they were in a different state than I was. But sure, I'll go to coffee with you. They were in Seattle. I was in Idaho. We've now been we finally did meet live. We've now been having coffee together for 3 years because people will absolutely give time to help people understand the industry. So just don't be shy about it. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I noticed you listed product development specialist on one of the career options. How does that fit within the context of an insurance company?
So product development, those people are just amazing. So, and that's another area where people are not coming into the jobs as much as they're leaving it. So product development, think about that. So all the things that we're talking about, our product development people, they write policy language. We look for, like if we want to go into a new type of industry or we're putting a program, our product development people will work on the language. And sometimes they get involved in pricing really closely with our actuary because our VP of actuary, she actually has a product team there as well. And so they're writing exclusions, endorsements, and things like that. But they're literally looking at developing the product as in the policy. It's way more fun than I made it sound, too. Yeah. And we need a lot of product people. See, we just need people in our industry. Yes.
Carrie, do you have any, just 10,000 foot broad level starting salaries? I think these guys are probably interested in, what's it going to take or what should I expect as maybe a customer service representative or associate underwriter or an entry level, college degree
So I'm trying to think what our interns on the carrier side,
I think a lot of the postings now have them.
they have them listed because they have to.
Yeah, I would say go to your websites. Every carrier is going to be different, a little bit, but you'll see salary listings on a lot of the postings for jobs. That'll give you an idea.
Yeah. But I know, I know, our summer intern that we're hiring for the positions in Meridian, Idaho. We had people here last week, and I know what we usually, because it's in Idaho. It's like $25 an hour, and it goes up from there. So it's not bad, and the benefits are good. And other than that, it drastically depends.
Is like the Carson College of Business has stats coming out
Yep.
of the recent graduates within a year or so, and they're in the mid to upper 60s.
Yes, I want to say 65-ish, give or take. And I can tell you, like firsthand, I don't think my daughter was recently married, and her spouse works at a competitor that I used to work at that I love. And she's in the claim team, and I can tell you she's been there a couple of years in Portland, and she's making probably high to mid 70s, and she's college education and had some experience. I mean, that's a real life example that I probably shouldn't do, but since it wasn't Berkley North Pacific and I know what she makes, I went there. So, and I won't tell you her name, but yeah. But which isn't bad when you think about it. And honestly, when I tell you there's opportunity, we've got people, there's a lot of people that look like me that are older, okay? And then there's a lot of, there's this big, Matt, what do you think it is? Because we work together. So I want to say there's a 15-year gap.
Yeah, 45 to 60 somewhere there.
Yeah, where there's this gap. Let me tell you why there's a gap. There was mergers and acquisitions that happened in the independent and in the carrier side of the business. And so they weren't hiring people. They merged all these companies together, and then they didn't need to hire. And now there's like this 15-year gap. Well, these people like me are starting to leave. And so there's still a gap, and we haven't done a good enough job backfilling people leaving the industry. And we do a horrible job selling how exciting and how meaningful and how enjoyable our industry is. And we got to work on that. I know, now I feel like an ad. It is an advertisement for our business. What else? Anything else? Hey, I left my phone in the hotel and I feel so empowered. So it's like I have to look here.
Compensation, because I know that's going to be on all of your minds too. Is on the carrier side, a lot of jobs are more salary driven. A lot of us have bonus potential, that kind of thing. When you get on the broker side, it's commission based.
Yeah.
And so for those that are bigger risk takers that have great sales skills, you can have exponential differences in your salary and upside earning income there, because it's a lot of that's just how hard you're going to work, how many connections can you make, how much business can you bring in.
Yeah, great point.
There's a lot of different ways depending on what your risk taking acumen is, as far as what you need to survive and all your personal situations. So a lot of different opportunities.
So many different aspects. And you had a question.
Yeah, when you were talking about assessing risk, you talked about the role of like a data scientist. How closely do you work with those people in those roles, and like how does that relate to the business on like a larger scale?
So that's one of the cool things of how much our industry has evolved. I am talking to our data people at least every other day, if not every day. And before I had a VP, he was an AVP, and he literally was a data scientist before he left to go to a competitor because it's so highly sought after. He was on my senior leadership team. He was at the decision table on everything, because that's how important it is. Now there's a team that I deal with. They're not co-located with me, but they're a resource. And I talk to them every other day. And it's like, look at this information and give me information on whether we're making the right decisions based on this. We had a book of business that we're looking at. We asked them to analyze the business. It is it better in what states is it better? Which ones are performing? Are the higher valued vehicles and heavy vehicles? What's their loss ratio compared to this? Every day we're talking to our data scientists to get them to give us their outlook on decisions that we're making. And they're at least in our organization, they're part of the decision makers.
Okay. And kind of to add off of that, would it be like people in those roles, not to bring it back to like the whole forever chemicals thing, but like are those the people that kind of would help to influence those decisions that are possibly in the future of like changing the industry for those companies?
Great question. In our organization, it's kind of the chief underwriting officer, and he has an amazing AVP that's been the most thought processed around it with the actuary. But let's not, okay, so you've got our data science that I'm putting over here. Actuaries absolutely are part of what you're describing, because actuaries look at, the future trends, and they have the triangles that go out, forever. You can to really look at what's happening from a reserving perspective, and are we looking at things appropriately? And so they would be involved in those type of solutions, at least as it relates to our own book. So it's kind of multifaceted. Mm-hmm.
Carrie, do you see machine learning and AI also coming in hand or side by side with the actuarial sciences?
Yeah, and I've read a lot of articles lately that where a lot of actuaries are thinking that that aspect is going to be a little bit minimized. I look at it; it's going to be not minimized, but it's going to be. It will give them the opportunity to even digest more and consume more and behave differently in more the analysis of it versus like the human thought process versus the models underneath it. That's my personal perspective. And those are actually the conversations I'm having with my VP of actuary. So it's going to make it different, Mike. So I don't think it eliminates our jobs, but it makes it different. Let's be honest with you. Underwriting, there's a lot of AI tools that you can use in underwriting as well. But from our perspective at Berkley North Pacific and W. Berkley Corp, we look at it as we still need the art of it. And we're probably not as advanced purposefully in some of the modeling and stuff like that, because we believe the art part of it is kind of goes hand in hand with it. But it's fascinating, how much that will evolve. Absolutely. Maybe one more, any more questions? If not, we'll have Mike come back up here. You guys, I just want to really, really thank you for, just your time tonight. I know that, there's a lot of, it's an exciting topic for me, but I know it's not always an exciting topic for people in the room. But I really want to thank you guys for your engagement and your questions. And please, again, I am on LinkedIn, and I've already told you I do. If you want any further engagement or anything, just give me reach out on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect. And I just wish you guys the very, very best. And I can't wait to see all these emerging risks and these future issues that you guys all go out there and solve. So keep up the learning, and thank you guys so much.